Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at some emulation on the upcoming AYANEO Pocket S. Now if you're not familiar with this new handheld from AYANEO, that's totally fine. I'll give you a quick rundown on everything that got going into this device. But like I mentioned, we're definitely going to be showing off some emulation in this video, and I have created one other kind of a first look video. The unit they sent over is an early prototype. It's totally not finished yet, but it's actually really polished for the way it is. Software has been continuously updated since I've had this in my possession, and I've noticed an increase in performance just from their OTA updates that they've been throwing out. A lot of different power profile tweaks and things like that, because after all, this is using a newer ARM SoC, the Qualcomm Snapdragon G3x Gen 2. Specifically designed for gaming handhelds, this will be the first one to market with the G3x Gen 2. And in my original first look video, we did test out a bunch of Android games, some high-end Android games in fact, and this chip will definitely handle anything that's on Google Play right now. I mean, you want to do some Genshin Impact, highest settings, 60 FPS, not a problem. It is actively cooled, which means it does have a fan, and they've created a new Dragon Tamer cooling system specifically for the Snapdragon G3x Gen 2. AYANEO's done a pretty good job here, and this chip will do up to 15 watts. It really does put down some amazing performance for native Android gaming and emulation. And real quick, just give you a look, they are going to be offering two different colors. We've got a white and a black. It's got that Snapdragon G3x Gen 2 gaming platform. It's an 8-core Cryo CPU, and the highest end cores will do up to 3.36 GHz, along with the new Adreno A32 GPU, which does 1 GHz. You can get this with up to 16 gigabytes of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage. They're also going to be offering some lower end variants. Absolutely beautiful bezel-less full display. It's a 1440p IPS mirror screen. CNC all the way around the edges. It does have Hall-based analog sticks and Hall-based triggers around back. They're not exactly sure on the overall weight by the time this is fully fleshed out, but it's pretty light and it's only 14 millimeters thick. Price has not been disclosed even to me just yet, and I'm really waiting on that. That's really going to make or break this device, but you can definitely upgrade the storage. It's got a micro SD card slot, and obviously it's running Android since we've got that Snapdragon ARM SoC. But now it's time to jump into some emulation and see how this thing performs. And you know, when it comes to the lower end stuff, NES, SNES, GBA, DS, even N64, you're not going to have a problem. Even Sega Saturn, using something like Yobase and Shiro, runs really well. I went through and tested a few games here and there. Not bad at all. I also wanted to test out some Atomiswave and Naomi. I'm using Flycast here, really good performance, and of course when it comes to Dreamcast you could always go with Flycast, or you could go with Redream, and with this, I mean, you can totally max it out. You can go up to 4K resolution with this chipset. And the screen here is 1440p, so it does look really good, and especially when you're upscaling something like PSP. Here's the standalone version of PPSSPP, Vulkan backend, 5x resolution. Everything that I tested ran at full speed here, and we could go higher with that resolution if we wanted to. But then, you know, you're just pushing more power, burning more battery life, and this is about as good as it's going to look on this display, given that it is 1440p, and it does look amazing. It'll even handle the harder to emulate games like Ghost of Sparta, Chains of Olympus, not a problem here at 5x with that Vulkan backend. And that new A32 GPU is really what allows us to kind of upscale all of these emulators. It's running at up to 1 GHz in the Pocket S, and you can really see the difference when it comes down to graphical fidelity in native Android games and even emulation. Moving over to some Gamecube using the Dolphin emulator, OpenGL. Everything that I tested, I just went at 1080p with it. So this is 3x resolution with the official Dolphin build. You could go up to 4x with a lot of this stuff. Some of the harder to run games like Rogue Squadron just won't do up to 4x yet on any Android device that I've ever tested. But most of these games will. I just left it right there at 1080p because I think it's a nice sweet spot for battery life and just how good it looks on this screen. Personally, I didn't even go in and test Vulkan with the Dolphin emulator because even the developers of the Dolphin emulator state that on Snapdragon, OpenGL is really the best performance you're going to get out of it. And everything that I've thrown at this so far has run at full speed, 3x resolution with OpenGL. Now I'm sure there's some Gamecube games that'll still struggle on this chipset. That's kind of how the whole Gamecube ecosystem with Dolphin on Android is right now. There's some games that just aren't going to perform well on an ARM chip, like the Need for Speed series. A lot of those games just kind of all over the place, but even Rogue Squadron 2 runs at 60 FPS upscaled to 1080p on the AYANEO Pocket S. Two more to go. One more to go. I also wanted to test out some 3DS emulation using Citra. I'm using a development build right now, or a nightly build, 3x resolution, and we do have access to the Vulkan backend. In the past, we were kind of stuck with OpenGL on Android with 3DS, but now that we have access to Vulkan, even lower end chips will be able to run some of these games at 1x. And personally, I'd like to go back to some older chips and test this new build out with Vulkan. This is something I've been waiting on for a couple of years now. It's always been OpenGL with 3DS on Android, but now that we have access to Vulkan, I think some of those older chipsets are going to perform much better. And finally, we've got some PS2 using the Nether SX2 patch, 3x resolution, and with these games I did swap between OpenGL and Vulkan. Some games just perform better with Vulkan, some work better with OpenGL, but for the most part, PS2 is fully playable on the Pocket S, and I've actually been able to take some of the harder to emulate games up to 3.5x. I just left it at 3x here. But in my original first look video, I did show some games off running at 3.5x, like Gran Turismo 3 and even Ratchet & Clank. Those games ran amazingly at 3.5, and I'm sure some easier to emulate games like Crash Bandicoot could go up if you wanted it to. But we're already right there, almost at the full resolution this screen does support out of the box already. This is pretty awesome, and of course, you know, we've been using EtherSX2 for a while. Unfortunately, it did get ads recently, so there is a patch out there known as NetherSX2, which allows you to kind of patch all of that out. Plus, they add some new controller profiles, which do come in handy for different devices. This is one of those I didn't have to do anything to. The overall control layout on the Pocket S registers in Android as an Xbox One controller, so all of the games, all of the emulators that I've been able to test here have just kind of picked it up automatically, and I didn't have to do any kind of mapping. And having that more powerful GPU with this Snapdragon gaming platform really does help out with upscaling PS2. Here's God of War 2, we're at 3x, and you can see, I mean, we're at a constant 60, even with all of those effects and particles on screen. Usually, we kind of dip on down, even on some higher-end Snapdragon chips out there right now, but with this, it's steady through at 3x. Overall, the Pocket S has been handling emulation and native Android gaming like a boss, and I kind of suspected it would, given the chipset we have here. Now really, what's going to make or break this device is going to be the price that AYANEO comes out of the door at. Of course, they will be offering a few different variants. This one here is a 12GB model with 128GB of internal storage. It's not even their highest end 16GB, 1TB unit. And when it comes to emulation on Android, having a little extra RAM is great, but I do think that 12 gigs is going to be plenty for an Android device for basically everything we want to throw at this. Now, if there's anything else you want to see running on the Pocket S before it's officially launched over on Indiegogo, let me know down in the comments below. And also, let me know what you think about this device. Are you going to skip an Android device like this? If they hit that right price point, is this something you'd think about picking up? And what would the right price point be for a device like this? The screen is awesome, it's putting out great performance, but of course we do have more powerful x86 powered handhelds on the market. Got some Intel ones coming up from other manufacturers. AYANEO has put a bunch of Ryzen powered handhelds out. They're definitely going to have to keep the price way under those other devices in order for this thing to succeed in the market we're in right now. So let me know in the comments below what the price point on this thing should be. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. Really appreciate you watching. I will keep everybody updated in my community section. I'm personally waiting on seeing the price on this thing. I don't know exactly when the Indiegogo is going to launch, and I'm still waiting on a few more updates for this unit itself. But so far, it's been a really great Android handheld. As soon as I get a go-ahead from AYANEO, I will make another video showing off battery life, benchmarks, and everything like that. That's one thing I haven't been able to show with this prototype just yet due to early software development. But as soon as they clear me for those benchmarks, I definitely want to show them off. I think people will be kind of surprised by what this thing's doing. If you've got any questions, you want to see anything else running on the Pocket S, let me know in the comments. And like always, thanks for watching.